Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, we knew Hugh Freeze would get active in the transfer portal. He is wasting absolutely no time. As of Monday afternoon, you're seeing multiple visits get lined up. You're seeing multiple targets emerge. You want to have the conversation, one, of some of the names that we've seen emerge for Auburn, but also kind of give some of our takes in terms of, hey, what positions, what players are out there that would be intriguing gets for this Auburn program over the next couple of weeks. Fired up to get into it now. Before we do, and as always, I think number one to the Auburn fans, it's going to be a team we're talking about a lot over the next couple of weeks. Let it fly in the comment section. Players we should look at, positions we should look at. We'll kind of update this as it goes. Every time I look at my phone, it's just like another 5 players hitting the portal. So this conversation is going to change a lot. Let it fly in the comment section if y'all do enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel, Dill. Without further ado, let's talk about a name that's emerged at the quarterback spot. Former Stanford quarterback Ashton Daniels, who played his high school football down there at Buford. Here's my take on this. And I texted you, and you said I love it. And so I'm going to give you the T-box here to sell the people on Ashton Daniels. My personal take is this would be a depth addition. I would be extremely surprised to see Ashton Daniels be the starting quarterback for Auburn in 2025. But the way I look at it, and I think the way Hugh Freeze is looking at it is, hey, our quarterback room right now is a true freshman in Deuce Knight and a redshirt freshman in Walker White. That's what we have. We probably want to add 2 quarterbacks. Now, the chances of you adding 2 high-caliber starting quarterbacks are relatively slim. So if Ashton Daniels, who sounds to be a guy that just wants to be with this Auburn program and kind of help out any way he can, so to speak, I kind of like it. I'll give you the chance now to sell the people on your takes with Ashton Daniels.
You said it. If you look at the Stanford year he had, it's far too inconsistent from a passing standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Way too many turnovers, not complete enough passes. He did have some really good games. Like you look at that Louisville game, like that's winning football from him. The problem is you didn't see it enough, but I do look as just a pure backup or a guy who maybe even in certain situations, whether it's on the goal line, running the ball himself, like those type of things, I think he can be a bit of a weapon. So I actually think he's a really good college backup in my mind because he is enough of a playmaker to not necessarily be able to run the offense perfectly, but still be able to make some things happen. So I think he is a good depth addition. Now, if I saw him trotting out there game 1, I'm with you. That's not ideal. So I would be really surprised if he's the only quarterback they bring in at this point in the cycle.
Look, year 3 for Hugh Freeze. I think he knows it's a big year. I don't think he's going to hitch his wagon to Ashton Daniels as a starting quarterback. That's not a shot at Ashton Daniels because, Dill, what's unique about this addition here is not only does he give you a depth addition at quarterback, this is a guy that can be in the room, a guy that's played more football than guys like Deuce Knight and Walker White, but he also, like you said, like goal line packages, short yardage. He's a very good runner of the football and a big physical body. So not only do you get added depth, but you also potentially get a quarterback that can help you win football games as, for lack of better terms, a gadget guy at the quarterback position. Now, Dill, here's the question I'll ask. If they add Ashton Daniels, which it sounds like there's a very good chance that might happen, what quarterback would you bring in as that 4th scholarship quarterback that you would expect to start in 2025?
I mean, the 2 obvious ones for me are Miller Moss and Caden Salter, and I think that part of it is, I think Miller Moss is just straight up good. I think a lot of people give him the Peyton Thorne kind of treatment where, if things are good around him, he'll be fine and you can win some games with him. I do think his ceiling as a passer is far higher than Peyton Thorne. I look at those first couple weeks when things were going okay around him. The offensive line was holding up okay for USC. He was really ripping the ball around. They were pushing the ball down the field, doing a lot of good things. The problem is their offensive line really broke down for him at USC, and he's not a type of guy who I think they can play poorly around him, and he elevates that team. But if things are going well, I think they can win a lot of games with
Miller Moss has a significantly higher ceiling than Peyton Thorne. Like I really don't get that comp, and it just starts with what he was out of high school. Like you don't become a top 100 national prospect without having certain physical traits that are appealing. Now, is he the best athlete? No. Is he going to go out and be a Heisman caliber quarterback? I'd argue probably not. But with all this talent on the outside for Auburn, if they can address that offensive line, which we're going to talk about, it sounds like they're doing, Miller Moss can win a lot of football games. Like his ceiling is significantly higher than Peyton Thorne. Dill, Caden Salter to me, I was going to say, I've kind of soured on Caden Salter a little bit. You talked to me 12 months ago. The film that Caden Salter put out at Liberty in 2023 was incredible. High-level throws, pushing the ball down the field, being a solid athlete. I still think Caden Salter might offer a little bit of a higher ceiling than Miller Moss because of the athleticism. Another guy that was a top 50 national prospect coming out of high school. The production dipped as he wasn't surrounded with as much talent in 2024. I just kind of have concerns about him jumping up to the SEC. He was legitimately one of the best athletes on the football field when he's playing in Conference USA at Liberty. What does that look like in the SEC? That's probably my bigger concern. I'd take Miller Moss over Caden Salter, but I think two really good options, and still two options that they're the perfect stopgap quarterbacks. They got one more year of eligibility. You can talk about a guy like Jackson Arnold or Darian Mensah, but you want to make sure you're not squeezing out guys like Walker White and Deuce Knight, who are going to be
in a perfect world. I think you want one of those two to start, either Walker White or
very much so.
Looking at these young quarterbacks in the SEC coming out and playing really well early in their careers, I think that's frankly you want one of those guys to play well enough, so you don't want to Then I mean, Jackson Arnold, I don't think it's an attractive room for him in his own right, because I don't think he has a great chance to start over both those guys. I think those two offer a lot of upside, a lot of talent. Jackson Arnold, I'm not sure we totally know what he is yet, but I think it'd be tough to come in and unseat Walker White or Deuce Knight because you haven't really seen him play great college football yet. Miller Moss now, on the other hand, or someone like Caden Salter, like they've won a ton of games. You kind of know what you're going to get. So I do think they have their shot at least to come in and compete for it. And I think they might be willing to do it. But at the end of the day, I still think if I'm Auburn, I probably would prefer one of those two younger guys.
You said something that kind of gets lost in the conversation, and that is the perfect scenario for Auburn, even if you add a guy like Miller Moss, Caden Salter, Jackson Arnold, is that Walker White or Deuce Knight are ready to go in 2025, which is a very realistic situation. You said it yourself. We just saw true freshman DJ Lagway, who we kind of thought similar to Deuce Knight, was a tradesy quarterback that need a year or two to kind of develop before he's ready. Nope, was ready as a true freshman. Kind of emerged as one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. What about a guy like Lenore Sellers? I didn't think he'd be ready in year two. He certainly was. There's a very good chance that Walker White or Deuce Knight emerge as your starting guys in 2025. That's probably the perfect situation, because if they're ready to play football and they beat out a guy like Miller Moss, this Auburn team's going to win a lot of football games with those at quarterback. Now, Dill, the other glaring position that needs to be addressed is the offensive line. Let's talk about Josh Thompson, who's going to be on a visit to Auburn, I believe, later this week. I think Michigan State is another team showing interest. Still, we're Michigan fans. We've seen a lot of Josh Thompson. We've seen him against some of the better interior defensive linemen that college football has to offer with Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Josh Thompson's a damn good football player. No takes or takes? You got takes on this one?
I mean, I'm just thinking, I think Auburn probably does need some veteran pieces in this room, and Josh Thompson certainly makes sense. I look at a guy like Braden Joyner. I thought he started to play some really good football for this Auburn team. I look at the tackle spot. That's probably my bigger question, just looking at it, because they're losing two. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing them let their young guys kind of develop into those starting roles. I don't think I'm looking at the way they're recruiting the high school ranks and the guys who are staying within the program. I wouldn't mind, frankly, seeing some of those guys. I don't want to be forced to rise to the occasion, but if they're ready to go, I don't love the idea of just portal every year into that offensive line, because at some point you want your high school players, your Connor Lewis, your Braden Joyners, those type of guys.
DeAndre Carter is another guy that I think if he gets kind of that body right, would be ready. My only thing is this is an important year. Do you want to put stock in these offensive linemen really putting it together? Do you want to bring in Josh Thompson? He's a bona fide starter. This is a really good football player. I don't think this is a guy that you're just kind of bringing in to bring in. I think he's a proven commodity on the inside of the offensive line at the highest level. I'm a really big fan of him. Now, Wendell Moe might be a little bit more of that conversation. He's played actually quite solid at Arizona. Dill, I think the bigger conversation is the tackle. I mean, anytime you lose – what is it? It's all, outside of Connor Lewis, most of your starting production is moving on here. At the tackle position, that's where you're trying to find answers. You could go the Oklahoma route, which what they did last year was just bring in a bunch of below average tackles and hope it sticks to the wall, and it just didn't, and it fell apart. Or you could just go out and get the best one. Instead of getting 4, just go get really one good one. And Corey Robinson, to me, doesn't get much better in terms of what we've seen at the offensive tackle position in the portal.
And it's so hard to find this type of guy in the portal because if
They don't
teams
come along.
typically let him go, it's like it's a valuable
Yeah.
position. He, to me, I mean, you look at the way he played in those games, in their big games, their games against Notre Dame, Georgia, like he looked the part. I think he's physically very ready to go. So that, to me, I'm with that because that, again, that still goes into my theme. Like I think you want to give your young guys a shot to kind of start developing into those starting roles. So if you do the Oklahoma thing and you just bring in 5 new guys, you kind of do start to pinch out your younger players. You don't give them a chance to get on the field as much. I would say go for a couple quality pieces and then let your young guys battle it out because I do think that room is starting to get deep enough the way Auburn's been recruiting lately to kind of sustain itself without like total
it's you're playing the balancing act of okay, you don't want to just completely bring in a new crop of players every offseason, but you also have to address positions that need to be addressed. And I think Hugh Freeze has a better feeling than what we do because we don't see a lot of the depth guys on Saturdays and we're not attending practices. Hugh Freeze knows if Joyner's going to be a guy you can count on or if DeAndre Carter is going to be a guy you can count on. We don't necessarily know that. I would say at least add a couple proven commodities on the offensive line, and that appears to be what Hugh Freeze is doing. And
that's I think you add a couple like what you said, proven guys, but I don't think you add like 4 or 5 mid-range players who you maybe think you just construct a 5-man offensive line out of. None of them are particularly great. Like just go get really good players who again mix in with those younger groups and let them have their spots or shots to compete at least.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be the fairest assessment. They'll look. This has been my take on Auburn for the last couple of weeks. If they get the quarterback right and they get the offensive line right, this offense is going to be a problem. And then you look at the defense; it's just young. I mean, outside of the off-ball linebacker spot, which we're going to have a conversation later this week on, I just don't know if there's enough. They're buzzing a kid from Fresno State. I don't know if I love him. I got to watch a little bit more of him. Outside of the off-ball linebacker spot, this Auburn defense, and maybe on the inside of the defensive line, depending on some of these true freshmen, this team can win a lot of football games. But you got to get the offensive line right, and you got to get the quarterback play right. If they do so, 2025 might be the year for Auburn. We'll see. We'll continue to. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind Hugh Freeze is going to make some plays. We'll break down the commitments as they come in. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.